Hey all, we're going to talk more today about transversals, and this time we're going to talk about what happens when the two lines being intersected are parallel. So you need to add to your flip book. These names should look familiar. These are the angle pairs, the special angle pairs that we had when we had a transversal cutting two or more lines. And this time, when the lines are congruent, or I'm sorry, when the lines are parallel, these angle pairs have special relationships. So 3 types of them are congruent, meaning they have the same measure, and 2 types are supplementary, meaning they add to 180 degrees. So one way to remember the difference is that the angle pairs that are on the same side of the transversal are going to be supplementary. Angle pairs that are alternate are congruent. And then, of course, the corresponding angles, the ones that are in the same place in the different banks of 4 angles, are going to be congruent as well. They're going to be the same because they're in the same location. So go ahead and add these to your flip book. So the last lesson, we were trying to figure out what type of angle pair existed, and we're going to have to do that again here. And then we're going to use the special relationships that we have now to find the missing angle measure. So when we have scenarios like this, the first thing to point out are these arrows. So in each of these we have some arrows. And just a reminder from a long time ago this year that those arrows mean that those 2 lines are parallel to each other. So this one has double arrows. Sometimes if we have 2 sets of parallel lines, we can use a single arrow for the 2 that are parallel and a double arrow for the other 2 that are parallel. So here we're going to check to see what kind of angle relationship we have. These are both exterior angles. They're outside of the 2 lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. This line, which is the transversal, so our angles are on opposite sides. So we have alternate exterior angles. Looking at our flip book, you should see that alternate exterior angles are congruent. So that means that question mark is equal to 100 degrees. They're the same size, so they're both 100 degrees. Here our angles are on the same side of the transversal. One of them's interior, one of them's exterior, and they're both in the different groups or banks of 4 angles. These 2 are corresponding angles, which makes them congruent to each other. So question mark is 78 degrees. In our final example, both of these angles are on the same side of the transversal. They're on the interior, they're between the 2 parallel lines. So that means that these 2 angles are going to be same side interior. They're going to be supplementary, so they should add up to 180 degrees. So we can write an equation that question mark, the angle we're looking for, plus the angle we know, 94, should add up to 180. And when we solve that simple equation, we get that the missing angle is 86 degrees. So you can see that if they're on alternate sides of the transversal, or if they're corresponding in the same place in the different groups of 4, the angles are just going to be the same. But if they're on the same side, and they're same side interior or same side exterior, they add to 180. So you got just a little bit more work to do to find the angle measure. So go ahead and pause here and try these 3 the same way we just did the last 3. So the first one, both of our angles are exterior angles. They're outside of these 2 parallel lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So they're alternate exterior angles. That means they should be the same, they should be congruent, and therefore question mark is 70 degrees. In our next one, both of these angles are on the same side of the transversal. They're in between the parallel lines. So they're same side interior angles. That means they are supplementary. They add to 180. So we can set up this equation showing that they add to 180, and then solve by subtracting 126 on both sides to get the missing angle to be 54 degrees. And then finally, these two angles are on the same side, but one of them is interior, question mark is interior, and 50 is exterior. They're both in the top right of the four angles in different banks of angles. They're in the same sort of location, so those are corresponding. They're congruent, so question mark is 50. So real quick, just to recap, I just want to point something out here. When the lines are parallel and we have a transversal, it should be a little bit easy to see which ones are the same size. This is one of those situations in geometry where if they look like they're the same size, that's probably because they are. So I have four angles, 50, question mark, and then these two that would be vertical from them. They all look like they're about the same measure, and that's because they are all 50 degrees. And then these other ones, they all look like they're the same size, and that's because they are all the same size, and they would be supplementary to 50 or 130 degrees. So all four of these purple or pink, however you see it, angles would be 130 degrees. So in these pictures where the lines are parallel, there's only ever going to be two different angle measures, and the angles that look like they're the same are the same. So it's important to know the relationships, but sometimes you can just go by gut feeling. If they look like they're the same size, same measure angle, that's because they are. Okay, so today we got a link. Make sure you click the link below. There's some examples like we just did. We just did 6 of them. I think I gave you 5. And I want you to do those, submit them, then show me your notes, and grab a practice.